That's a very interesting background picture for Yawn.
Great background.
I've been rocking with
Very
this
good
background.
idea. Love it.
Yeah. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everybody. Welcome to
GM.
CoinGecko's 27th virtual meetup. My name is Zhong. I'm the head of research here at CoinGecko, and I'll be your host for today. So welcome everybody in the audience, and welcome to our three guests. So today we're gonna talk about a very specific sector in crypto, which is GameFi. If you've been in crypto in 2021, you probably heard a lot about GameFi and play to earn and move to earn. And joining me today, we have three very distinguished guests. We have Yawn Rong, who's the co-founder at STEPN. We have Dermot McGrath. He's an advisor at Tearing Spaces. And we have John Monahan. He's the VP of Sales at Splinterlands. And together we're going to talk about, what has happened with GameFi. How has it been since 2021? How did, all their projects sort of weather the bear market, right? And what are their plans for their games moving forward? Yeah. So to kick us off, I think like I mentioned, I think play to earn and GameFi really helped spark a wave of new crypto-based games, right? But the hype sort of tapered off at the end of 2021, and and then bear market sort of happened. Just I think first question for our guests, how do you think your project and other game projects have sort of changed their approach since then, in light of the current market conditions? So maybe start with Yawn, and we'll sort of go around the table. Yeah.
Sure. So, I think the thing with GameFi, going up and down is really just the crypto cycle thing, right? So we've seen this back in last cycle. We're gonna see this in the future, and still, I still believe that game is still a very is amazing tool for user onboarding, especially for Web 2 to Web 3. So that's what we actually believe. As for how we're going, so I think I actually gonna discuss this down the track where, um, after running STEPN for a year and a half, we actually took a lot of learnings, and we also see that to grow, the entire ecosystem of your token, you really have to branch out to build other things. Just keep building and keep iterate. So I think that's main sort of the takeaway for running the STEPN.
Yeah, and Dermot.
Yeah, can you hear me okay? Just a quick
Yeah.
mic check. Perfect. Yeah, I agree actually with you on that. Kind of like a rising tide definitely floats all boats, and we're kind of linked to the cycles at the minute. So I think we've seen a pivot to quality, which has been long overdue. We've seen kind of shifting narratives in the early days of crypto gaming. Games kind of touted their unique AMMs, for example, and we think if your core selling point as a game is your AMM, you may not be a game. So we're seeing this shift to gameplay, what game engines you're playing on, whether you're free to play. We've seen a lot of partnerships pop up with traditional players like Epic Games. Seen a softening of jargon, and that was much needed. There's been a recognition that if we want to onboard more players, there needs to be kind of simpler communications. People are retaining NFTs, but also referring to digital collectibles. GameFi kind of became Web3 gaming, and is slowly becoming gaming powered by Web3. Competition is increasing. Zynga has entered, Ubisoft, lots of big names have entered, and yeah, we've kept building throughout. I agree, you have to keep adding features. We went from closed beta to open beta, launched some NFTs, and added new game modes, and yeah, we think kind of agree that the rising tide floats all boats. As you add features, people will come, and you got to focus on the quality and keep building.
Yeah. And John, for Splinterlands, do you see a shift, in your strategy and the games that are sort of similar to yours?
In our case at least, it's not really a shift in strategy. It's just a added layer of urgency to do the things that we already had on the roadmap. Because I agree with everything that Yawn and Dermot are saying. Really the pathway through is to keep building. Why do you keep building? Because you need to add quality and you need to keep your community engaged. And as long as you're able to keep the, core community engaged, you sort of, you're riding out the winter, right? So, if you did what you needed to do before winter started, then you should have enough stores of food to make it through. And you just sort of cross your fingers and hope that winter doesn't last extra long. But, for us, that's really the secret, right? I think we're hurting just like everybody else is. We're just not hurting as much as the majority of other projects out there, So if you want to have a sustainable project, I think you have to have that attitude that you're always going to want to focus on quality. You're always want to continue building. You want to have smart token economy design. Because let's face it, the reason we are so subject to market conditions in this space still, in this very nascent stage, is because the people that are here are financially motivated, right? But at some point, as the quality increases, as these big guys, all these big gaming studios, they start to get into the space, I think we'll start to overcome some of the perception issues that we have, right? I think the majority of the world still thinks an NFT is, a picture of a monkey. That's just not the case. It's a certificate of title to this thing, that you now own and you can trade and you can earn stuff with. You can put that capital to work. But most people aren't going to care too much about that. They're going to want to just play the game, and they just want to know that they're going to have some increased flexibility with the items that they've accumulated or purchased, or they're trading on the open market, and those sorts of things. I think that's going to be the core motivation of most gamers as they come into the space, most normal gamers. So
yeah. So I think that conversation actually leads quite nicely to my next question. So we talk about people who took on who picked up these games at the start were financially motivated, and typically these are the crypto degen people, right? People that were already in crypto. I'm sort of wondering, do you guys see significant difference between sort of crypto gamers and non-crypto gamers in terms of whether there are specific genres that they prefer, or what do they expect from a game, and how has that sort of influenced how you think about your games? And John brought up tokenomics as well. So how does that affect your tokenomic design as well? Maybe John first.
Yeah, I think if you think of a Venn diagram, right? You have your non-financially motivated gamers and your financially motivated gamers. The non-financially motivated gamer circle is very large, right? There's a third of the world's population right there. The financially motivated gamers that have a sense of economics or have an extreme motivation due to their own personal economic conditions to find a way to earn, that circle is still relatively small for the people that, know and understand that this is a pathway forward. And so you kind of have like these investors, and then you have gamers that are likely to join a play to earn gaming guild or something like that, right? And right now, the intersection of those two circles is still relatively small. But over time, I think you're going to see this migration from the big circle to the smaller circle, and you're going to see the overlap because, one of the things I like to talk about, I spent most of my career helping to build education technology startup companies before coming here. And one thing that I've learned through, some of the learning science research that's out there is that, gamification of anything is a very effective way for the human brain to learn, right? And so we can almost use GameFi specifically, to make the world smarter on economics and finance. So the process of playing a game allows you, I think the games are going to continue to evolve in such a direction that you're going to come for the entertainment value, and you are going to choose if and when you start to get into the actual financial side of it. But all of those tools are there, and the carrots are dangling. And, so I think you become more likely to go and try to learn, okay, what is staking? What does that mean? What is a liquidity pool? What's a decentralized exchange? And some of that stuff probably won't even matter at some point because, the infrastructure is going to continue to improve as well. So it's going to be very easy. Oh, I click this button, I send this thing here, and it's not going to be nearly as scary as it is right now. But, I think there's going to be these new dynamics unfolding, and that's pure speculation on my part that gaming is going to lead to better education on finance and economics. But, this world of gamification of finance is really going to open some new doors, and probably some doors that we haven't even really thought of yet, because gamers tend to be on the front edge of the innovation anyway. So we'll see how it all plays out, but that's kind of how I see it right now.
Yeah, and Dermot, what about from your end? Your game is a bit more serious and a bit more for the hardcore, I guess.
Well, thank you, I guess. Yeah, I think we got kind of bored of seeing a lot of repetitive mechanics, a lot of repetitive games, and we wanted to kind of see if we can add a bit more strategy and a bit more competition. So we started off with the MOBA concept, wondering how we could make it even more competitive. We have a competitive team here, and we're like, let's add a racing element. So it's a 3v3, first to kill their boss wins. But it's still kind of, again, we wanted to add that complexity, whereby you can, mix and match different characters and weapons, depending on your strategy and stuff. And that's kind of more, we think that will be more attractive to traditional gamers. I think I agree with some of the stuff John said. I think there's kind of been almost an over-optimization for crypto natives in the past. And we don't want to miss kind of the forest for the trees. We don't want to over-financialize the game. People, John actually mentioned that we can kind of make the world smarter in finance using gamification. I 100% agree. It reminds me of a quote from Freakonomics. I'm not sure if you've ever read it, and it's that people respond to incentives. And I think, as you notice, people learn far quicker. I've noticed people learn far quicker in game economies than real economies. People will make a lot of consistent investment and personal finance mistakes over and over again, but in gaming, you get some really switched on folks attacking you and attacking your economy. So 100% agree with that. And there is that shell, and there's that kind of reinforced layer of security that you need to build up when you start off with your crypto native majority, but don't lose sight of what the game will need to be to onboard more. Yeah.
And Yawn, I think STEPN is really interesting in terms of looking at this from your lens. Just wondering, how did you guys approach it, I guess, at the start, and has it sort of evolved?
Sure. I think to answer the original question, I think there's two significant differences between the crypto and non-crypto the games. Because we've discussed with crypto game normally come with financial bit, but what people usually don't talk about is that when it comes with financial, it directly impact the level of securities, right? So traditional game, they don't really worry too much. But now this game NFT or token can be sold, right? Then it will trigger a lot of hacking issue or spoofing issue or cheating issues, right? So the level of security come in two parts. One is that how can you safeguard users' asset? Because for any of the casual users, they don't really too care about the security level until they got hacked or stolen. So how to design each part of your game, make sure that even though the account is compromised, how can you minimize the impact? That's very important on security level. And also there will be security on the bigger pictures where how you protect your server and other things, to prevent from hacking. And the second part is where it comes with cheating issues. So again, when it comes with great financial gain, and people say, okay, I think I can sort of gain extra profit or extra advantage over other players if I do this and that, right? So they will come in two ways of cheating, right? So one is that they will directly cheat, either is a spoofing on their GPS or with our running game, or they will just use other means, right? So to emulate, right, the running thing. And the second is that they will just trying to hack you, right? So they will exploit the game mechanics, right? Because it's really difficult to design anything that perfect in the first go, right? So you will have some loopholes, right? So you need to really scrutinize your system. Say, okay, are there any loopholes, or looking at how people can exploit you, and then fix the bug, right? So that is, I think, never we seen any Web2 company have the, I think the amount of investment we put in to prevent, the spoofing or the hacking or the cheating, or, we spend, I think, at least 50% of our energy just doing this. We've been constantly upgrading our anti-cheating mechanics, which is AI based, called SMAC, now in the first generation, right? So I think that is almost like ongoing investment into preventing these type of things happen. That's number one. Totally different to the Web2 games. And number two is that the level of transparency the user required is totally different to the Web2 user, right? So Web2 user, I'm just lay back, I don't really care, the mechanic, I don't really care how you doing your transactions or this and that. But in Web3, right, everything's on the blockchain. The transparency is unheard of, unseen in Web2, right? So they will care about where the founder go. They will care about, how you move your money or your token, or what are you doing behind the scene, right? So how is the in-game economy is looking like. So the community will although the community say, okay, I don't have the token, to vote or whatever, but in collective force, the community will police or will govern, the direction of the game, right? They'll say, okay, I really want this feature. Can we put into that? Put into the game, right? So you are building the product together with the team, right? So it's not like that we have a done product. It's like a World of Warcraft, whatever, the MMORPG, right? So now I spoon feed to the user. But in Web3, you build as you go and you take community's recommendation. So that is something that on the block, everything transparent on the blockchain is something that we never seen before on the Web2. Plus, that also comes with a downside, because now everything is transparent. If you say, oh, you are sluggish on your active user, you probably will go down. Let's just sell your asset, right? So that become another type of issue, that if you stop growing, people can see that your plateau on your growth. They will say, all right, I probably want to front run everybody and just sell my asset, and that will provide a bit of a bank run issue. Especially when it comes with financial considerations. So it become a very sort of intertwined dynamic between how you run the project, how people perceive, and they can observe almost everything, right? So on the blockchain, and that gives us a lot of I think learnings of designing future product, right? So I think one thing that we will definitely not do, right, for whatever we design down the track, is that we will not design anything that or potentially can be exploited. I think the move there is almost like a perfect mechanic, because you can verify the GPS, you can verify, the gyroscope, you can verify a lot of things to make sure that they actually physical are moving and they don't carry multiple devices and they are not doing all the funny things, right? With AI is possible. But with a lot of the Web2 genre, you can't do that. And there are many, I think, well done Web2 cheating softwares that is also very difficult to deal with. So that is a typical issue, right? So we cannot design anything that can be cheated, and also we cannot design anything that have over complex graphic designs, because the cycle in this space is too short. You design something fancy, you don't have 3 years to develop a product, right? You have like 6 months max, right? So you really need to make compromise on everything is simple, the design, the mechanics, lower the understanding level, and then we need to focus on the tokenomic designs. We need to focus on providing value to the user. So yes, there are financial value, but again, what if the financial value reduce, right? We need to find out what additional value we can create to the users. And also we need to design something that's so simple that people can understand right off, right? So they don't need to read like a tutorial to understand. Otherwise, people have very little patience in this space, especially in the bull market. They say, okay, can you make money? Yes, I'll in. Otherwise, they'll say, I'll find something else.
Yeah, thanks for that. I just wanted to jump off of that, because I wanted to come to you, Dermot, because you have quite a complex, I think, sort of gameplay design. It's real time, and your graphics are next generation, I would say, in terms of for like blockchain games. I'm just wondering, how would you guys, I think different projects, think about balancing gameplay with sort of the play to earn mechanics that Yawn just talked about a lot, which is all these guys are just gonna front run and dump your assets, right? If they see any sign of like danger.
100%. So yeah, it's a fantastic question. So just back to the history, we saw a kind of a gap in the market for kind of advanced graphics and a beautiful game. So we built this. Again, it's a little bit different from your standard kind of crypto native games in that most were previously in browser. This is a downloadable client, which is more or less a must if you want to have these kind of beautiful bright graphics. And of course, that presented its own challenges. We are kind of taking incremental steps into kind of crypto. I'm going to make up the word now, cryptoization or kind of Web3ification. We started off with basic NFTs. There is no token yet. We're constantly attacking, modifying the design. But to comment on something Yawn said on the constant optimization, and that was kind of an issue we got into on the client side, and something we had to modify as we went. Is the balance of kind of cheating without adding complexity. So we have our standard game client you download. If there's anti-cheating stuff there, but when earning is involved, the incentive to attack and the incentive to hack goes up tenfold. The payoffs are just way more. We kind of learned early on, better safe than sorry. We got to link as much as possible all your in-game movements, attacks, and everything to the server, which means we had to kind of repurpose our data flow. Essentially, you push forward, you push back, left to right, attack, even bounce. That all goes to the server. You attack the enemy on the server, and his damage gets reduced on the server. So that was the best way we found to stop cheating and to kind of safeguard the earning mechanics and make it fair. Again, it's always build as you go, as Yawn also said, and we had to, of course, in the beginning, cause lots of lag. We were sending more data than we wanted to. We optimized for that. We reduced the data flow and stuff. So to kind of respond, there is this iterative process, and it does present its own challenges, particularly when you have a client. And it's something we've been learning a lot and solving for, and we're quite happy with where we are so far. And it's worth it to kind of present these beautiful graphics.
Yeah, and that's sort of the trade-off, I guess, that you have, a sort of design choice that you have to choose given the limitations of the technology today. John, I think coming to you, I mean, a trading card game is also not simple, right? To design the rules and having to balance out all the different mechanics. Yeah, is it sort of iterative? You sort of don't have a lot of chances to get it right, to get it wrong, I guess, before people start complaining that the game is unbalanced. And,
It is. It's a tall task, and thank God I'm not part of that that team that has to worry about that, right? But we do a release every single week on Tuesday. So there's always, whether it's some sort of quality of life improvement or a big release or something in between, there's always something being upgraded, updated. And we also have, sort of the cyclical nature to it too, which I think is helpful because it allows you to really focus on getting it right, as far as game mechanics go in our case. So in our case, by the way, for those who aren't familiar, it's a trading card game, but it's an auto battler. And the gameplay is specifically in the strategy of setting up your team, right? So every character has different stats and abilities, different attack types. And you're allowed to have one summoner and up to 6 monsters. You're presented with randomly generated rule sets for each battle. Battles are only 2.5 to 4 minutes long. So you're basically just, setting up a team, coming up with a strategy on short notice based on randomly generated conditions, and then fielding that team. And, once you submit your team, your opponent submits theirs. Basically that's when the gameplay is over. You can watch the auto battler, see how it plays out, and use that as a learning experience. But this idea that we have card editions helps to make it cyclical, right? So we're not introducing new characters in all that often, But when we do, we tend to introduce a bunch of them. And then even when we do a large edition of new cards, it's very much like Magic the Gathering this way, right? But even when we do a large edition of cards, we will pre-design the characters that are reward cards, pre-design characters that are, sort of airdrops for purchasing a lot of packs and things like that. But luckily, I mean, we have some really talented people who have been designing the game and the game mechanics for a long time. We're actually, we're quite old for the space. We launched Splinterlands over 5 years ago. Originally, it was called Steam Monsters, but there's been a lot of lessons learned, a lot of mistakes made, a lot of things that break that you need to fix. As you might imagine, we've accumulated some experience over that time too. So we've been pretty good with that. On the security front, it's extremely important. What Dermot and Yawn are saying, we see, all the same things. Where there's money to be made inside or outside of Web3. This has always been the case throughout human history. Where there's money to be made, there will be people trying to exploit it, right? And so this is going to be no different, and it is very much proven that way as well. So, I as Yawn, just like STEPN, what Yawn was saying, there's a lot of effort and energy dedicated to keeping things secure. But yeah, it's difficult to balance the game mechanics when you really start looking closely at our game and the different leagues that you advance up into as you level your cards up and they pick up new abilities and they increase stats. The meta of the game just starts growing like exponentially. And one of the biggest things we're working on now is land. We sold land I don't know, 2-3 years ago now. And we are like this close, like by the end of this month, this close to releasing, our land concept, which is basically an entire new game. And it is basically a heavy economy simulation, where you can put your character cards to work on your land, and there's different types of land, and you can produce different types of resources, build different types of buildings. You can basically enter trade agreements. There's all sorts of different things that you're going to be able to do. It's pretty fascinating stuff. So we'll find out what kind of security challenges that'll pose as well, right? But luckily we got some smart people thinking about that and working on it and quick to react to it when we do have issues. So yeah, it's quite a challenge. This is not an easy space to be in, GameFi. It's not an easy space to develop products. And I think the people that enter, the new projects that enter, they find that out pretty quickly.
Yeah, I think, certainly, I think, when you guys talk about the security challenges, it did struck me like, oh yeah, there's going to be a lot of incentives to hack and to cheat and things like that. Yawn, I wanted to come back to you about, onboarding newbies into the space and into the apps, right? So one of the frequent challenges with crypto is that, it's just hard to create a new wallet, get people to write down their public key, private key, and things like that. And I think one of the narratives of GameFi is that games is one of the ways to, either teach people how to do this or find an easier way to get people to onboard them to crypto, right? So I'm wondering, based on your experience, bringing people into the space, like, how has that been? How do you tackle it? How do you think about some of these problems?
Yeah. I think we did two things quite well in the beginning where we started, right? So the first thing is that we developed a bot in Discord. It's basically a quiz bot. So every hour we pick a random time in an hour, we ask a quiz question, and then people will answer that quiz question, normally related to a white paper, and that resulted in just thousands of people just go read up, white paper like a Bible, right? They want to memorize everything, and they can be the one click, answer the quickest because there's a prize, right? So there's a Genesis NFT, as a prize. So it's quite valuable back then. So we were just, I need to win this, right? So we do it 24/7. Every hour we do one quiz, and then people go crazy, and then that actually educate people how your product work and what is the advantage. And when people asking questions, especially in Discord, oh, how this work, and these people normally will say, okay, this is how it work, right? Because they know inside out what's going to happen. So that's one thing I think we did. The second thing we did quite well of user onboarding seamlessly is where we're having this activation code system. So the activation code system can only be generated by the existing user. Once they run for, say, 10 kilometers, they have one code, right? So they can give the code to their friend, family, or they can put the code on Twitter, for example. And normally what happens is people use the code, normally come back to this person, oh, I have this difficulty of, how to set up the wallet, or, how to do the transaction. And normally people will be happy to answer. So you are creating like a senior, like in the school, right? You have a senior student helping the junior student, oh, this is where the toilet, or that is, facilities. So that onboarding process help the new user and get the nerve away, right? There's always the answer to your question, and you can always find somebody, especially if you're in the game, right, to ask what's going on, right? Have confusions here and there. I think that is when it comes with like user onboarding designs. And we also did a few things with UI UX, a tutorial, that standard thing, or we at some stage we actually also talk about that we can maybe use a staging mechanic. For example, people come in, it will just be a Web2 game, right? There'll be no wallet, and there'll be nothing. And once they use it for maybe a few days, they level up, and then we'll have a pop-up, right? So now, if you want to keep playing this as a not P2E, just a normal running app, yeah, you can do it. Or you can create a wallet and buy an actual NFT sneaker, and then you can try run outside and earn some tokens, right? Or NFTs. So that also take the immediate like not like the you have to make a wallet and in order to use it, right? It's not like right in your face, right? So you get familiar with your product first, and then you get them to choose. And I think, but when it comes down with, I think the main barrier of entry is wallet at the moment. But we're actually looking at account abstraction wallet, social recovery, or social login. Those things you don't need the C phrases anymore. And also looking at other type of wallet feature where you can maybe pay gas on users' behalf, or you even incentivize them to create a wallet. That also help. But again, when it comes down with financial gain, it's like, okay, if you incentivize them, or you say I'll pay you gas on your behalf, that again trigger more of an exploit issue. So that has also been dealt with.
Yeah, thanks for that. Dermot or John, anything to add to user onboarding?
Yeah, I would say one thing that's worked well for us was we've very much leveraged what we think is almost the superpower of Web3, and that's your hyper engaged community. That's not to say that obviously there's not devoted fans of traditional games, but I think in Web3 there's this extra feeling of belonging that comes with being an early supporter of the game, and you kind of grow together. We've created a kind of an ambassador program where people can rise up through the community and become leaders and even regional leaders, kind of for different areas, and that's worked super well. We've kind of used that as a means of we've kind of combined that with other things. We actually had for example, a content streaming competition where people could win prizes by streaming the game. For example, we had a weapon design competition whereby kind of people submitted designs for a new weapon, the community voted, and we're chose a winner, and we're actually adding that weapon to the game. And that just kind of shows that we care about the community, and that becomes super apparent online as you see this kind of activity on Twitter. And actually during our first season of our open beta, we actually had some Web2 natives come into the Discord. So I remember I was just kind of monitoring the Discord, and one guy was like, what's a wallet? And I was like, oh, who's this guy? I definitely straight away I sent him a DM. I was like, who are you? And welcome. he said, "Oh yeah, I saw you guys online, saw you on Twitter. It's a kind of a unique concept, 3v3 battle racer. Haven't really seen that before. I'm a little bit new to crypto, but I hope to learn more." And that was just me getting to know him. But by the time I went back to the general chat, there was 10 or 20 people helping him, answering his questions, showing him step-by-step stuff. So I think, as Yawn said, there's when you have that dedicated community, there's always these helpers to help with the onboarding. So that's something we were super proud of, and was great to see. On the more specifics on the tech front, I'd like to say there's just kind of like a silver bullet, but it's not there yet. We've seen some cool innovations with some folks like Immutable X Passport looks pretty good. Stardust looks pretty good, but they're more or less custodial. So there's in the near term, there's going to be that trade-off between trust and ownership when you're onboarding the first few Web2 as the technologies grow. But so far so good, and the tooling is just getting better every day. We've seen, in addition to the amazing number of new games coming on board, there's fantastic tooling coming out. There's a lot of smart people working on it. I saw some people even injecting MetaMask into the DirectX UI. So I'm quite bullish that the problem will get solved. A lot of smart people in the space, and onboarding's been great so far.
And John?
Yeah, I mean, user onboarding is a challenge, right? I think well, for normal people, there's a lot of scary stuff there. To Jan's point, I think it's improving, right? You don't necessarily need seed phrases anymore. If you're developing new games now, I think you definitely have a much better suite of options available to you. When we were developing between 5 and 6 years ago, it was a little bit different story. But I think that you can overcome it. For us, I think we're a bit niche because we are so complex with economy design. So I think that we're gonna have a really I don't want to say narrow, but even when it's narrow by gaming standards, that still can be a ton of people. But it's going to be a very deep and very loyal fan base, and that's what we've proven to have. But what Dermot was talking about is really the key to making that happen, and that is the community superpower, right? And so I think one of the things that we got right, whether intentional or not, is being very visible and to the community and very engaged with the community. We have a very active Discord. We run a weekly town hall where our CEO and co-founder and a bunch of other team members, will kind of cycle in and out. We'll basically do a 2-hour show, where we are talking about updates. What are we doing? What types of questions are really important for us to answer from the community right now and everything else. We get a lot of people, a lot of community members that show up there. And so when it relates to user onboarding, that becomes a really nice tool to send anybody who has questions or anything else. They can go in there. There is, no matter who you are, there's a channel for you, and a way for you to get the information that you need, whether it be from a team member or from other community members, and often both, like Dermot's example. So, I think that's really important. I think it's interesting, this trade-off between, custodial wallets and the implied trust and the decentralization or the implied trustless, right? I tend to think, and we are very decentralized and very trustless in what we do, but I do think the masses are going to prefer the trust route, for the most part. And in order to build the trust, you have to be visible to the community. You have to be, you have to earn their trust. You have to stick with what you're saying. You have to hit, development milestones. You have to be able to deliver the entertainment value. And, I think those that can figure out how to get that right, it's going to be interesting. But I do think that you want to have both. You want to give the option for decentralization. It's very similar to just going and buying Bitcoin or something like that. I can go to Coinbase and I can buy Bitcoin and I can leave it there if I want to. Now whether or not that can be confiscated by a government or something like that, that's an entirely different conversation. But I can choose to leave it there on a centralized exchange in a non-custodial wallet, or I can send it off into my custodian, my wallet. And so, I think having that sort of philosophy for gaming is also going to be helpful for user onboarding too. Because the masses, I think when they first get in, there's so much that they feel like they need to learn. It can be very intimidating, and I think if we can remove that barrier, and again, what I was talking about earlier, allow them to learn about Web3 at their own pace, on their own time, if they want to. I think that's going to be a good pathway to get to.
Yeah, I think it's been a fascinating conversation so far, but I wanted to ask specific questions to our specific guests, and we're gonna sort of go around the table. I think starting with Yawn first. I think Yawn with STEPN, it's really interesting that you guys launched very quickly on 3 different chains. On Solana, on Ethereum, and on BSC, and sort of like, I guess, contrary to the sort of like Web3 narrative, it's 3 different separate independent instances of the same game. So I guess wanted to ask about that. I think that was a pretty unique path to go down to. How do you guys think about that? And do you see, I guess, different communities forming on different chains that still come to the game to step in itself? Yeah.
Not exactly that each realm have their own sort of community, but we do actually have our partners pick chance they prefer. For example, when we did the asset collaboration, they picked the BSC. And when it comes with the Ghost in the Shell, they prefer Solana. And when it comes with Atletico Madrid, which is the soccer club, they pick the Ethereum. So, to each of their own, right? They say, okay, I prefer to work on certain chains, and we release their NFTs on that chain. But when it comes down to the player base and on different realms, because the realm start with 0 asset or very, very minimum asset, right? So then you grow the user base, and you have more player, you have more sneaker, you have more NFTs. So you will go from parabolic up, and then gradually up, and then plateau, and sometimes goes down. So they have different life stage, right? So because we release the realm at different time frame, so you are actually quite interested in looking at each realm on the economic side. They're performing on themselves. The East realm being the latest. We talk about token prices about 10 times more than the Sol or BSC realms, because they are at East realm is still at the mid or early mid stage, right? And that allow user to pick their risk preferences, right? So we want to, in the old realm, there's more people, more liquidity, so you can get cheaper sneakers, or you want to be risky and go into the new realms, right? So higher prices, higher opportunity, but riskier, right? So that is something that we let the user to pick which realm they want to do and which life stage they want to be part of. And also we can only recently we started to run different campaigns on different chains. For example, we recently did the Gas Hero badge that was exclusively on East realm, right? You had to burn some token in order to get the badge. So I think overall the realm system initially allow us to having the same product but on a different lifespan of the same game. That is more like grow the user base vertically on single product. And then we also that give us the idea that how about we can also grow our user horizontally, right? Meaning that we're building additional product. So that's sort of the reason that we're now building the Gas Hero, which is another social game, so that we will grow our user base not only by just one single product, but different verticals, right? So we also are building the NFT marketplace, right? So that also have another part of the user, either creator or traders. So I think the realm, when we first started, right, is a simple idea. Say, okay, how can we keep the game running? But now it become more of strategic directions, right? How can we branch out to other direction? How can we make our ecosystem bigger?
Yeah, and speaking of Gas Hero, since you mentioned that, so it's a new game, and it seems to be in a completely different genre. It's a, I think, social MMO. I guess, like, tell us a bit about why you guys decided to go down that route, and sort of did you take any lessons from STEPN that's gonna help shape the direction of Gas Hero? Yeah.
Okay. So one thing that we discover when we building STEPN is that we don't want to overcomplicate the product, because we actually have people quit the game and then come back and say, "Oh my God, this becomes so complex," and actually that give us some bit of thinking and say, okay, maybe we don't feel the game become more complex. We thought that we are making this simple, but again, over the years and years of adding new things here and there, new systems, it actually become a little bit complex. So we don't want to adding more things into STEPN too much, and that will lower the barrier of onboarding. So that we say, okay, the original vision for STEPN is to create a lifestyle product that with a game and social element, right? We did a game element, and maybe we can build another product for social element. So that is sort of where we're thinking that we just carry on the vision of building STEPN is to onboarding Web2 user, right? Through gamification and social. So we also believe social is the big, I think, the narrative for the next bull run, hopefully. So we took some learning of STEPN, and then we developed Gas Hero. So basically, what we did is that in STEPN is a people choosing the benefit of health benefit and also some financial gain, right? So the financial benefit and health benefit. So they are basically swing between these two ends, right? But in Gas Hero, we actually make it more of a 3D structure. So we introduce the financial side, which is the wealth. We introduce the influential side, which is the social side, which is the fame, and also introduce the governance side, which is the power. So you can see that they are like triangle shape, more stable, and people can transform, a fame to wealth, or wealth to power, or power to fame, right? So the transformation of token or NFT become longer, and that also allow people to be I think spending more of their energy or time in the game, and making more structured and balanced. And also we're looking at all these metaverse game and product out there. So you enter into this metaverse and it's empty, right? It's grand, you have all the buildings there, you have all the facilities, but I think one thing that it lack is the social structures, right? So if I enter like any of the metaverse type of the game, I don't know how to interact with other person. I don't know who he is. I don't know what he's up to. I can have a chat, but how can I looking for this person again, right? So we actually adding a very structured social structure, right? So you have like a 9-player, you can form a clan, and 9 clan form a city, right? That type of thing. So and then that city come into like a country, for example. So it's very structured. Each of the clan, city, district have a leader to oversee, and to distribute the resources. So and then it will almost act as if this is like a real world economy, or a real world, have the war between different city or district, and so that we're making this a PvP type of product. Because if STEPN is something that people earn token from, the project, we have to provide value, we have to provide a lot of things, to keep the economy going. But in Gas Hero, people are literally just competing on each other's resources, right? We are just to make the bigger structure, all the social interaction, all the wars, resources, competition happens within the Gas Hero social structures.
Yeah. Yeah. Dermot, coming to you on tearing spaces, right? So you mentioned earlier, you just wrapped up season 1 of your open beta. I'm just wondering, how has the response been from player base, but also I think you have gaming guilds as well, on tearing spaces. That's sort of something that also emerged in 2021. How has the response been, and is there any interesting feedback that you're getting before you launch season 2?
Yeah, 100%. So we had some great figures. I think we had over 50 plus guilds in season 1. The largest guild had over 300 members. Season 1 total player registrations exceeded 10,000, 2,000 plus players, accounting for 180,000 battles. It was just super. We were super happy. We, again, leaning on that superpower of Web3, that community feedback was super important. We had a dedicated bugs channel where people were feeding us information and feedback on bugs live. We had a hot update build whereby we can update automatically as soon as you launch the game. So we were fixing bugs as we got them in. And again, that's something I don't think you would see as prevalent in traditional gaming. So we very much lean on that because we have a room full of testers, but they still miss stuff. And of course, Murphy's Law, your players are going to find stuff that you couldn't. So that was super important. And yeah, we had guilds from all over. And it kind of brings me back to that question. I think you asked Yawn if you saw different communities arising on different chains coming to your game. And we didn't actually see that at all. We realized that there's nothing like a game to kind of break down tribalisms, but I think that's mostly because more newer tribes are formed. So we saw people coalescing around different things around the game. People really loved our characters and our artwork. Each player in each guild had their favorite character combination, weapon combination. People coming up with names for different kind of inventory layouts. We have a character called Uriel, who was slightly overpowered in the early days of the game. We saw guilds turning up with 3 Uriel loadouts, calling them Uriel abusers. So we had constant memes being made, and brings me back to what John said about kind of the game mechanic optimization. When you have earnings and the potential to earn, the balancing of the game is exponentially more important. And I agree with John that I'm not the person, luckily, who's in charge of that, because the guy never wins. People are always complaining, my crossbow is crap, the sword is too good, blah blah blah. Yeah, just constant feedback, constant improving, and we're taking it all into season 2 in a few weeks.
Yeah. And we wish you the best of luck for season 2. But I do wanted to ask about the other question. So you said that because of having to have a client so that you can send information back, and a lot of things needs to be recorded directly on the server. It needs to be processed on the server. I'm wondering, Tearing Spaces is built on Polygon, and with when you guys were building this, and while you're still building this, I guess were there a lot of challenges trying to integrate things onto chain, and does building on a more performant chain sort of helps, I guess, or what are some of the challenges there in terms of having to build with a chain?
Yeah.
In the equation,
we were lucky with 100%. Yeah, again, so that anti-cheating and the fact we have earnings forced us onto the server for sure. We had to optimize for the latency, had to run things on the server. Again, because it was Polygon, a lot of the guys are EVM and kind of Solidity native programmers. So it actually went quite well for us. And again, as I said, we're kind of inching into the Web3 Web3ification, if you want. So for us, it's just been slow release and constant testing of on-chain aspects. We've in the beginning just had our so we before diving full in, we gamified in other ways. So our first collection launched during Mint Madness on Magic Eden. and we were able to mint tickets. You bring the tickets over to our website, and actually we had a fun, almost like a Tinder swipe functionality, whereby you swipe left or right for the PFP that you wanted. As soon as you swipe left, it's gone forever, and stuff like that. We had our pass card, which we airdropped, doubled as a scorecard, and we were able to add scores on the back end and rank them. And at the end of the closed beta, depending on your ranking, it converted into a weapon. Finally, we introduced this, we call them Divine Stewards. They're essentially a slight game attribute whereby you combine two of your avatars with one weapon. You choose, and this gave us another kind of fun mechanic whereby if people had like some parts of this PFP, but and other parts of this one, they could choose their favorite of both, combine them into a new one, and get a new asset. So this type of functionality took a little bit of finesse, took a lot of testing, but it was still very doable, and we haven't run into any issues yet. The weapon is also omni-chain. We leverage Layer Zero technology. We work closely with the team to launch our omni-chain NFTs, where you can it's not even bridge, where you can move your weapons over to different chains depending on what activities we're running. This has all been quite simple, and not a lot of issues yet. We'll as we continue to add more features, of course, there'll always be ongoing testing. We're not going to be fully on chain because you just can't deliver the level of graphics, animations, and stuff that we deliver with it if it's fully on chain yet. So yeah, we're still iterating and adding features as we go.
Yeah, cool. John, I think coming to you on Splinterlands, you mentioned the Land 1.5 expansion that's coming up, and you say that it's almost like a new game, right? Like it's going to bring new mechanics and things like that to the core Splinterlands experience. I was just wondering, I think talk to us a bit about the idea and the rationale behind this. We have seen other games also launch lands, but maybe Splinterlands is doing it differently. Is it about driving value back to the players that you have already, or is it a way for you to drive in new players into the game itself?
Yeah. So maybe the biggest end goal or end result is it's going to drive a lot of value back into the governance token. So our governance token is SPS. We also have another fungible called dark energy crystals that for the longest time was the play to earn reward token, right? And we do price our card packs both in fiat currency and in dark energy crystals. So it effectively serves as basically a product-backed stable coin. We call it a flat coin. But you can always pay for a card pack. You can pay $4, through PayPal or Venmo or crypto. Or you can pay 4,000 dark energy crystals, right? So if it falls below peg of $1 per 1,000 DEC, then you effectively can get a discount on our product. And so it puts that upward price pressure. We also have a mechanism by which you can burn SPS, our governance token, for DEC, which becomes profitable once it goes over peg. So there's the downward pricing pressure, but there's a bit more inflation than we'd like on DEC out there. And with land, it provides a significant DEC sink, and it provides a significant card sink as well. So if you go read through the land white paper, the Land 1.5 white paper, which is really fascinating stuff, and it will take a while to read too. The basic idea here is that you need to have a lot of cards and a lot of DEC in order to be able to earn from your land. And if you have a lot of cards staked on your land and you have a lot of DEC staked, which then allows you to produce grain, which feeds your worker cards, which then produces more resources, whatever you're after, then you end up sending a lot of value into that SPS token, because it'll make DEC much more scarce. And as DEC gets much more scarce, it goes above peg. All these financially motivated people will start to burn SPS for DEC, making SPS more scarce. And then they use that DEC to buy more SPS, rinse and repeat until it drops back down. So it's a really cool cycle that is meant to drive a lot of value back to the SPS token, which really at the end of the day is driving all this value back to our player base, right? So if you have invested, and not financial advice, but if you have invested a significant amount of your money into cards and assets in the Splinterlands ecosystem, this is certainly a way that you're going to end up being given back to, but has to have that layer of entertainment value, right? Like all the mechanics are really fascinating. It's going to take a little while to learn it. I'm really looking forward. I mean, it's one thing for me to read the white paper, which is really cool. It's gonna be another thing to get in there and start playing around. It's going to have all these different levers that you can pull, and different ways that you can put your capital to work. It's going to have all these different ways that you can optimize your card collection, and how do you pair that up with playing the core game as well? The battle game. So this concept is really going to be fascinating, because I don't. And granted, I don't know all Web3 projects, but I haven't seen anything like this out there. So I think it's going to be a little bit of a new thing. It's not just like a land metaverse type of concept, where there's maybe there's some utility, maybe the utility is a little questionable. This isn't meant to be a super metaversey type experience. This is meant to be a pure economy gameplay experience, which I think is going to be fascinating. So, cross our fingers and hope that, when we launch it, it's not, there aren't too many bugs or exploits or anything like that. I don't think there will be, because we're very careful about how we launch this type of thing. But, it's sort of our next big strategy that is going to be released, and it's a strategy that has been in motion for years. So we think it's going to be a big deal. We'll see what our community thinks, but they seem awfully excited about it.
Yeah, and one more question. I think it's your game is a trading card game, and part of that is the collectibles. I think aspect of it, which I think is fairly unique to TCG games. So I wonder if you could speak a bit to that. Do people sort of come to Splinterlands just to pick up art or cards that they like and enjoy? And
they do,
yeah.
Yeah, the art is popular, the lore is popular. We got a great creative team. There's a whole story behind Splinterlands. There's a lot of lore that you can read through and have a lot of fun with. We do have people that come for the collectibles. There are there's 4 different rarities. There's 2 different foils. There's regular foil and gold foil. There are a series of different editions that have come out over the 5 years, and each edition tends to be larger because the player base is larger and the amount of people in Web3 is larger. So it gets right sized. But the economic principle of scarcity is always at play in the Splinterlands ecosystem with the cards. And so there's some cards. There's actually there's one character. There's one type of card where there's only a single one of those in the entire ecosystem. It's this character called the Mighty Dricken, and it's a gold foil copy, and there's only one of them, which is really interesting. But we have, for the collectibles too, the collectible side of things, I think we provide this additional dopamine hit with the concept of deflating the card market as well, because you can. There's incentive to level your cards up, because you need leveled up cards to be able to play in the higher leagues, to be able to compete up there. How do you level up cards? Well, you need multiple copies of the same character card. You burn them together to leave one NFT that's higher level. As they level up, they pick up more stats. They pick up new abilities, which increases the value of the collectible as well. And in some cases, like for common rarity cards in Splinterlands, for example, you need 400 copies of the level 1 to create one fully maxed level 10. So there's a significant burn mechanism that creates even more scarcity over time. increasing the value of the collectibles and increasing sort of the cool factor of what the card looks like because it's picking up these new abilities. So yeah, that's a great question. We definitely have those types of players in our ecosystem where they don't really play the game or they don't play the game much. They're there for the collectibles and really enjoy that piece.
Yeah. It's again, like I said, it's been a fascinating conversation. I feel like we could go on for another hour, but we're kind of like over time. So I think just thank you guys, Yawn, Dermot, and John again for being with us today. I just wanted to go around the table, make sure you guys have any final thoughts. What are you guys excited about in GameFi? What are your hopes for the second half of 2023? So maybe Dermot can go first. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks a million for having me. I'm super optimistic on the future. I think even the other guys on the panel, Splinterlands, STEPN, building great products. I'm definitely bullish. Tooling is improving. A lot of very fun games are coming to market. They're in alpha and beta. A lot are making a push to mobile. And there is that hook that the game is fun, and we are solving for the key issue in that you own what you earn. So super happy to be kind of in the same cohort with the folks here, and I think we have a fantastic shot of expanding to the masses. Smart people and great games are tackling it, and LFG.
Yeah. Yawn?
Sure.
Yeah, I really appreciate. Oh, I thought you said John.
Is that Zhong or Yawn?
Any one of you can go first. I think that's okay. Yeah. Why don't Yawn go first? Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh, I thought he said John again. John, you go. You go. I'll go next.
Oh, okay. Sorry. Okay. I think what we're good at is to make gamification product. So that doesn't mean like game, right? So, but to gamify something, I think that's what we're really good at. And I think for the later half of this year, we're gonna release Gas Hero, which is more about gamify on social. And also we're thinking about what else we can gamify, right? So maybe we can gamify trade, we can gamify other things. So I think that is the most exciting part, where you are actually gamify something, you are actually make values, not just on the financial game where is the GameFi, right? So you are actually offering additional things for the user, right? You offer them new experience, social interactions, social connections, healthier body, and that is important thing to us, right? So building something completely new to the market, and also to build something not just a game but game-like product. And I also hope that the halving event for the Bitcoin can bring us all of this market condition, and hopefully that by the early of next year we'll see something very exciting happening.
And John, last but not least.
Yeah. Well, first of all, thanks for having me. This has been a great conversation. Really enjoyed listening to Dermot and Yawn as well. Yeah, I think Web3 is very much a rising tide raises all boats. I don't think we're at a point yet where we even view each other. Anybody views each other really as competition. We really need the entire space to rise up. I'm a big believer that GameFi is going to be the lens through which Web3 hits mass adoption. It's a large audience of people. They tend to be on the cutting edge, and gamifying, the process of learning Web3, I think is going to be the key. So for us on the project side, I talked a lot about land. That's the single biggest thing for Splinterlands. After that, the next frontier, we're gonna productize our platform. And have some of these, a lot of these things that we've been developing for the 5+ years, make that a menu of options for other projects that want to come into the Web3 space as well, game or not. So very excited about that, and thank you for having me again, Zhong. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks again, Yawn, Dermot, and John, for joining us today. And really, that's all the time that we have today. Thank you so much to the audience for staying on. Before we end, I just want to thank Daniel, who's our producer for these meetups. He's actually leaving CoinGecko this week. So we want to thank him for making sure the meetups actually go smoothly every month. He's the one that makes sure that streams are up and everyone's sort of on time and all the audio is clear. So thanks, Daniel. And yeah, and that's it for CoinGecko's 27th meetup, and we hope to see you again next month. Take care, everybody.
Okay, see you guys.
See you guys. Thank you. Bye bye.